My girlfriend left me saying she needed to work on herself. Then I found out she was already with another guy, so I moved on. But she came back trying to replace him with me, and I ended it for good. This happened over the past 2 years, but I'm finally ready to tell the whole story. It's long, but trust me, the ending makes it worth reading. TLDDR at the bottom for those who want the quick version. Some background about me first. I, 31 male, and I own a marketing agency in Austin. Started the company 4 years ago after working at a few big advertising firms in Chicago. We specialize in helping medium-sized companies with their digital marketing strategies, and business has been incredible. Last year, we pulled in about $2.8 million in revenue, and my personal take was around $850,000. Not bad for a guy who grew up in a trailer park in East Texas with a single mom who worked 3 jobs. I met Britney at this networking event downtown about 2.5 years ago. She was working as a social media strategist for some startup that folded 6 months later. First thing I noticed was how she looked. Absolute knockout, blonde, perfectly made up, dressed like she stepped out of a fashion magazine. Second thing I noticed was how interested she became when she found out what I did for work. Marketing agency that must be so profitable right now, she said, practically purring. Should have been my first red flag, but I was thinking with the wrong head. Britney had this way of making everything about status and appearances. She'd insist on going to the most expensive restaurants in town, always wanted to be seen at the trendy spots where Austin's elite hung out. She drove this leased BMW that she could barely afford and lived in this overpriced apartment in the domain that ate up most of her income. After 6 months of dating, she started dropping hints about moving in together. Your place is so much nicer than mine, she'd say. And think about how much money we could save if I wasn't paying rent on my place. The money angle again, but I was infatuated and thought I was in love. So I said yes. Moving in together was when I really started seeing who Britney was. She quit her job 2 months later, claiming she wanted to focus on building her personal brand and exploring entrepreneurship. What that actually meant was spending my money while taking Instagram photos all day. She'd ordered $200 worth of skincare products, designer clothes, expensive meals, and somehow never had money to contribute to groceries or utilities. I was making good money, so I didn't mind at first, but Britney's spending kept escalating. She wanted weekly petties costing $120, monthly facials at $300, designer handbags that cost more than most people's rent. When I started asking questions about her spending, she'd get defensive and talk about how she deserved nice things and how successful men were supposed to take care of their women. The worst part was how she treated service workers, rude to waitstaff, condescending to retail employees, absolutely vicious to anyone she perceived as beneath her social status. I'd watch her tear into a barista for making her latte wrong and feel embarrassed to be with her, but she was always sweet to me, especially when she wanted something expensive. Britney also had this obsession with social media status. Everything we did had to be photographed and posted. Expensive dinners, weekend trips, the new jewelry I bought her. It all went on Instagram with hashtags about her blessed life and how grateful she was. She'd spend hours crafting captions to make our relationship look perfect online while treating our actual relationship like a business transaction. The breaking point should have been when I found out she'd opened a credit card in both our names without telling me and racked up $8,000 in charges. Designer shoes, handbags, spa treatments, dinners with her girlfriends where she picked up the tab to look generous. When I confronted her, she cried and said she'd gotten carried away, but that it was technically our money since we were practically married. Like an idiot. I paid it off and made her promise it wouldn't happen again. She promised. We made up and I thought we'd move past it. Looking back, I should have known that was just her testing how much she could get away with. The conversation that changed everything happened on a Thursday night in March. We just gotten back from dinner at this expensive steakhouse downtown. $180 for 2 people. Not including the expensive sides she insisted on ordering. Britney seemed distracted all evening, checking her phone constantly and giving short answers to my attempts at conversation. When we got home to my house, a 3,200 square feet place in Westlake I'd bought the previous year, she sat me down on the couch with this serious expression. "Jake, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, not making eye contact. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about my life, about what I want for my future." My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever started with those words. "I think I've been relying on you too much financially and emotionally," she continued. "I need to learn how to be independent, how to build my own success instead of just living off yours." The irony was incredible. After 2 years of bleeding me dry, now she wanted to be independent. "I think we should take a break," she said. "I need to focus on myself, figure out what I'm passionate about. Maybe move back to LA where there are more opportunities for someone like me." "Someone like you?" I asked. "You know, someone with my ambitions. Austin is great, but it's not really where people go to make it big. I need to be somewhere with more potential." We talked for another hour with Britney explaining how this wasn't about me personally, how I was an amazing provider, but she needed to find herself. She talked about maybe reconnecting in the future when she'd built her own success, but insisted that waiting for her wouldn't be fair to me. I helped her pack the next weekend. She took everything I'd bought her, the jewelry, clothes, handbags, even the expensive coffee machine I'd gotten for my own kitchen. As she loaded her BMW with boxes of designer goods I'd paid for, she looked at me and said, "I hope someday you'll understand. This is what's best for both of us. You deserve someone who can match your success, not drag you down." The manipulation was masterful, making me feel like I was the problem while she rode off into the sunset with thousands of dollars worth of my money, converted into luxury goods. The first month after Britney left was rough, but not for the reasons you'd expect. I wasn't heartbroken. I was angry. Angry at myself for being such a sucker. Angry at her for being a manipulative gold digger. Angry that I'd let someone take advantage of me for 2 years. I threw myself back into work with a vengeance. My business partner, Ryan, and I had been talking about expanding into the Houston market. So, I started making trips down there twice a week, meeting with potential clients, and setting up our second office. The distraction was exactly what I needed, and the additional focus paid off. We signed 3 major contracts in 6 weeks, adding about $400,000 in annual recurring revenue. My friends were supportive, but not surprised by the breakup. My buddy Chris, who'd never liked Britney, was brutally honest. Dude, we all saw this coming. She was bleeding you dry and treating you like an ATM with legs attached. You're better off without her. About 2 months after Britney left, I joined a boxing gym downtown. I'd never done any serious martial arts, but I needed a physical outlet for my anger and frustration. That's where I met Sarah. Sarah was a pediatric nurse at Dell Children's Hospital, originally from Colorado, who'd moved to Austin for a job opportunity 3 years earlier. She was at the gym for a kickboxing class, and I was immediately struck by how different she was from Britney, where Britney was always perfectly made up and dressed to impress. Sarah was natural and unpretentious. She wore minimal makeup, kept her hair in a simple ponytail, and seemed completely comfortable in her own skin. We started talking after a class where I'd made a fool of myself trying to keep up with the conditioning routine. Sarah was friendly and encouraging, making jokes about how everyone struggles at first. She had this genuine warmth that wasn't trying to get anything from me, just basic human kindness. We started grabbing coffee after workouts, then lunch between her shifts and my meetings. Sarah was everything Britney wasn't. She paid for her own meals, never asked about my income or business, and seemed genuinely interested in me as a person rather than what I could provide. She lived in a modest apartment she could easily afford, drove a reliable Honda she bought with cash, and had her financial situation completely together. 3 months after meeting Sarah, I realized I was falling for her hard. But this was completely different from what I'd felt with Britney. With Britney, the attraction was based on her looks and the validation of being with someone everyone else wanted. With Sarah, I was attracted to her character, her intelligence, her compassion for her patients, the way she made me laugh without trying. Sarah never made me feel like I needed to prove my worth through spending money on her. She was happy with simple dates, hiking at Zilker Park, cooking dinner at home, checking out local music venues. When I offered to pay for things, she'd often insist we split the bill. She had her own life, her own goals, her own financial independence. We made it official 4 months after Britney had left. Sarah suggested we take a weekend trip to San Antonio to check out the Riverwalk and some of the historic sites. As we sat by the river Saturday evening, sharing a soda and talking about everything and nothing, I felt this incredible sense of peace. This was what a healthy relationship felt like. 2 people who enjoyed each other's company without any agenda or manipulation. Meanwhile, I hadn't heard a word from Britney, which was exactly what I'd expected given her stated need for independence and self-discovery. I figured she was off in LA trying to become an influencer or marry some Hollywood producer. I honestly didn't think about her much at all. That was about to change. 4 months after Britney broke up with me, I got a text from my friend Kevin, who still lived in LA. Dude, you need to see this nonsense. Check Britney's Instagram. I'd unfollowed her when she left, but I could still view her profile. What I saw made my blood boil. Her feed was packed with photos from the past 2 months showing her with some dude I didn't recognize. But these weren't recent developments. Based on the timestamps and locations, they'd been together for at least 3 months, probably longer. The guy was clearly loaded. Photos of them on what looked like a private yacht, expensive dinners at places I recognized as some of LA's most exclusive restaurants, shopping trips to Rodeo Drive, where she was carrying bags from stores that sold handbags for more than most people's car payments. The most recent post showed them at some charity gala with the caption, "So blessed to have found my king who shows me what real success looks like." Sometimes the universe has a plan you can't even imagine. I scrolled back through months of posts documenting their relationship. This guy, his name was apparently Derek, something based on her captions, was some kind of investment banker or hedge fund manager, the kind of money Britney had always dreamed of accessing. Based on the timeline, she'd been talking to him before she even broke up with me. Britney hadn't needed space to work on herself. She'd needed space to upgrade to a bigger source of income without technically cheating on me. All that garbage about finding her independence and building her own success. Complete lies. She just wanted a clean transition from my comfortable income to this guy's massive wealth. I showed Sarah the posts when she came over that evening. She looked through them with a mixture of disgust and disbelief. "What a piece of work," she said, handing my phone back. "She was planning this whole thing while she was with you. I feel like such an idiot." I admitted all those conversations about her needing to find herself, and she was already auditioning for her next meal ticket. Sarah shook her head. "You're not an idiot for trusting someone you cared about. This just shows you who she really is." That's when I really understood the difference between Sarah and Britney. Sarah's reaction was about my feelings and how I'd been wronged. If Britney had been in this situation, she would have made it all about her, demanded to know if I still had feelings for my ex, needed constant reassurance, probably would have wanted to do something petty and vindictive. I didn't contact Britney. What would have been the point? I dodged a bullet and found something real with Sarah. Seeing those posts actually brought me closure, confirmation that I'd been right to feel like something was off in our relationship. But the discovery still stung, not because I wanted Britney back, but because she'd played me so completely. Made me think I was some inadequate boyfriend who couldn't make her happy, when really she was just a mercenary looking for the highest bidder. 2 months after discovering Britney's deception, Sarah and I had our first serious conversation about the future. It happened naturally during a Sunday morning at my place. We were making breakfast together when she mentioned that her lease was up for renewal soon. "I've been thinking about maybe finding a place with a little more space," she said casually. "Somewhere with room for a home office since the hospital's letting us work remotely for some of our administrative stuff." "More space for what else?" I asked, though I was hoping I knew the answer. She smiled. "Maybe for someone else's stuff to go alongside mine, if that someone was interested." 6 weeks later, Sarah moved into my house. The transition was seamless in a way that still amazes me. Where living with Britney had been like constant negotiation over every little thing, living with Sarah felt like we'd always been roommates. She contributed to groceries and utilities without being asked, kept the place clean, never tried to redecorate or change things to suit her taste. More importantly, she made the house feel like a home instead of just a place I kept my stuff. 4 months after Sarah moved in, I started shopping for rings. Not because I felt pressured or because it seemed like the next logical step, but because I couldn't imagine building my future with anyone else. Sarah was my partner in every sense, someone who made my life better just by being in it. I proposed during a weekend trip to Colorado at this overlook in Rocky Mountain National Park where you could see for miles in every direction. Sarah said yes before I'd even gotten the ring out of the box, laughing and crying at the same time. We decided on a relatively short engagement, 8 months. Long enough to plan the wedding we wanted. Short enough that we didn't have to wait forever to start our married life. We booked a venue at this historic ranch outside Austin, sent save the dates to our families and closest friends. Everything was falling into place perfectly. My business was growing faster than I'd projected. We just signed our biggest contract yet, a 3-year deal with a Fortune 500 company that would add $1.2 million annually. Sarah was being considered for a promotion to nurse supervisor. We were talking about kids, about maybe buying some land outside the city where we could build our dream house. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had everything figured out. My career was thriving. I was engaged to an incredible woman and the future looked bright. Then 6 weeks before our wedding, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't seen in over a year. "Hey Jake, I know this is unexpected, but I'm back in Austin and was hoping we could catch up. I've learned so much about myself over the past year, and I think I made a huge mistake letting you go. Can we grab coffee this week?" The gold digger's desperate return. I stared at the message for a long moment, then showed it to Sarah. "What are you going to do?" she asked with no trace of jealousy in her voice. "Just curiosity." I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds before typing back. "I'm getting married next month. Hope you're doing well, but I don't think meeting up would be appropriate." Brittany's response came within minutes. "Married to who? Jake, please don't make any big decisions without talking to me first. What we had was special." "You know it was." Then another. "I saw some nurse on your Instagram. This is obviously a rebound. You're making a huge mistake." And another. "I came back to Austin for you. I turned down opportunities in LA because I realized home is wherever you are." I turned off my phone and spent the evening focusing on Sarah and our wedding planning. When I checked it the next morning, there were 12 more messages from Britney, each one more desperate and manipulative than the last. Sarah suggested I respond once more to make my position crystal clear, so I sent one final text. "Britney, I'm happy with Sarah, and we're getting married in 6 weeks. Please respect my relationship and don't contact me again." Britney's response was immediate and revealing. "How can you marry someone who makes like $60,000 a year when you're pulling in almost $1 million? She's obviously using you for your money just like you think I did." The projection was incredible. Britney, who'd actually bled me dry for 2 years, was accusing Sarah, who insisted on paying her own way, of being a gold digger. But instead of backing off, Britney seemed to take my engagement as a personal challenge. The harassment immediately started. She began commenting on every single one of my business social media posts, trying to make it look like we were still in contact. Professional posts about marketing tips, company milestone announcements, even a post about our team volunteering at a local charity. She commented on all of them with stuff like, "So proud of you," and "Miss working on projects together." We'd never worked on any projects together. She'd never worked at all while we were together. Then she started following Sarah on all her social media and commenting on her posts. Nothing overtly hostile, but definitely crossing boundaries. Comments like, "Jake has such great taste in women and hope you're treating my ex well. He deserves the best." Sarah handled it with more patience than I would have managed. "She's clearly panicking about something," Sarah observed after showing me Britney's latest comment. "This level of desperation isn't normal." That's when my friend Kevin called with the real story. He'd done some digging through mutual connections in LA and found out why Britney was suddenly back in Austin. Turns out Derek, the investment banker she'd been dating, had dumped her about 2 months earlier. Not only dumped her, but apparently found out she'd been talking to other wealthy guys on dating apps while they were together. According to my friend's source, Derek had caught her at dinner with some tech CEO she'd met on a sugar daddy website. He'd kicked her out of his Malibu house that night and blocked her on everything. But it got worse. Britney had been living way beyond her means, even with Derek's support, racking up credit card debt to maintain her LA lifestyle. When he cut her off, she couldn't afford her rent in Beverly Hills. She'd had to move back to Austin and was currently living with her parents in their suburban tract house, the same middle-ass lifestyle she'd always claimed she was too good for. That explained the desperation. Britney wasn't back because she'd realized she loved me. She was back because I was her only remaining option for the lifestyle she felt entitled to. A week later, she escalated. I was in a client meeting when my business partner, Ryan, got a call from someone claiming to be a former business associate of mine who wanted to warn them about some ethical concerns regarding my company. The caller implied that I'd been involved in some kind of financial improperly and suggested they might want to reconsider their contract with us. Ryan, who's known me for 5 years and knows my character, told the caller to leave him alone and hung up, but he was concerned enough to give me a heads up. Some woman called trying to sabotage the Henderson deal. He told me didn't give a name, but she knew enough details about our business to sound credible at first. Any idea who might want to mess with us? I knew exactly who it was. Britney was trying to destroy my business because I wouldn't take her back. That evening, I got a call from my biggest client, the Fortune 500 company I mentioned earlier. Someone had sent them an anonymous email claiming I was being investigated for misappropriating client funds and including screenshots of fake documents that looked like they came from some regulatory agency. My client's legal team had already figured out the documents were forged, but they wanted to give me a heads up that someone was actively trying to sabotage my business. Their general counsel told me he'd seen this kind of thing before. Usually disgruntled ex-employees or ex-partners trying to cause damage. Jake, we know this is garbage, but you might want to consider legal action, he advised. This kind of harassment can escalate quickly. 2 weeks before our wedding, Britney showed up at my office. I was reviewing contracts when my assistant buzzed me. There's a woman here who says she's an old friend, my assistant said, sounding uncomfortable. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's insisting she needs to see you about something urgent. I walked out to the reception area and there was Britney dressed to the nines in a way that screamed, "Look what you gave up." Designer dress, expensive jewelry, full makeup like she was going to a photo shoot. She looked good, I'll give her that. But there was something desperate in her eyes that the makeup couldn't hide. "Jake," she said brightly, like showing up at my workplace unannounced was perfectly normal. "You look amazing. Success really suits you." "Britney, what are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice professional since we were in my office. "I was hoping we could talk privately," she said, glancing around at my employees who were pretending not to listen. "About us, about the mistakes I made." "There is no us," I said firmly. "I'm getting married in 2 weeks. To someone else." Her expression shifted from fake sweet to calculating. "To that nurse." "Jake, come on. You're a millionaire. You could have anyone. Why would you settle for someone so ordinary?" The contempt in her voice when she said ordinary told me everything I needed to know about why she was really there. Sarah isn't ordinary. She's exceptional, and I'm not settling. I'm marrying the woman I love. The woman you love, or the woman who makes you feel good about yourself because she's so grateful for your money. Britney shot back. "Jake, I know you. You need someone who can match your ambition. Someone who understands success. Not someone who will hold you back. You mean someone who will spend my money while contributing nothing in return?" Britney's mask slipped completely. "I contributed plenty. I supported your career. I made you look good at events. I helped you network. Do you think successful men just date nurses? You need someone who enhances your image, not someone who makes you look like you're settling." The sheer audacity was breathtaking. She'd literally never supported my career in any meaningful way, had been rude to my business contacts at networking events, and had actively discouraged me from working late or traveling for business because it interfered with her social plans. "I need you to leave," I said. "Security can escort you out if necessary." Britney's eyes filled with crocodile tears. "Jake, please. I know I hurt you, but I've changed. Derek was a mistake. He was just using me. But what we had was real. I came back to Austin for you. I turned down opportunities in New York because I want to be with you. You came back because your sugar daddy dumped you and you need a new meal ticket," I said bluntly. "The answer is no, Britney. It will always be no." Her tears dried up instantly, replaced by cold fury. "Fine, but don't expect me to just disappear quietly. You're making a huge mistake. And when your little nurse gets tired of pretending to be satisfied with your boring life, don't come crying to me." Our wedding day arrived and it was perfect despite my lingering concerns about Britney. The ceremony was beautiful. Sarah looked absolutely radiant, and our families and friends were genuinely happy for us. My parents, who had never liked Britney, kept telling me how much they loved Sarah. Her family had welcomed me like I'd always been part of it. During the ceremony, as Sarah and I exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, I felt this overwhelming sense of rightness. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Not the transactional relationship I'd had with Britney, but something genuine and lasting. We made it through the ceremony and most of the reception without incident. I was starting to think Britney had finally accepted reality and moved on. Then, as we were saying goodbye to the last guests, my cousin approached me looking concerned. "Jake, there's some woman outside asking about the reception. Says she's an old friend who wanted to congratulate you but missed the ceremony." My heart sank. Blonde, overdressed, looks like she's trying too hard. He nodded. "She's been out there for about an hour." I told her the reception was over, but she's still sitting in her car. Sarah was across the room talking to her sister, completely unaware of the drama brewing outside. I decided to handle it myself before it could ruin the end of our perfect day. Britney was indeed sitting in her car. The same BMW she'd had when we were together, though it looked like it had seen better days. She was on her phone, probably posting something on social media about being at my wedding. "Britney, What are you doing here? I asked, staying well back from her car. She got out and I could see she'd been crying. Her makeup was smeared and her hair was disheveled. I had to see it for myself, she said, her voice. I couldn't believe you actually went through with it. Of course I went through with it. I told you I was getting married. But I thought if you saw me again, if you remembered what we had. She trailed off, looking at me with desperate eyes. What we had was you using me for money while planning your exit strategy, I said coldly. I remember perfectly. That's when Sarah appeared beside me. I hadn't heard her approach, but there she was, still in her wedding dress, looking calm and beautiful, despite the scene unfolding in front of her. Hi, Sarah said to Britney, her voice professionally pleasant. I'm Sarah. You must be Britney. Jake told me about you. Britney looked Sarah up and down like she was evaluating livestock. So, you're the one who stole my fiancé. I didn't steal anyone, Sarah replied evenly. Jake and I met almost a year after you two broke up, and from what I understand, you're the one who ended things. I made a mistake, Britney said, her voice rising. I was scared of commitment, but I came back. I realized Jake is the only man I've ever really loved. Love? I couldn't keep the disgust out of my voice. You never loved me, Britney. You loved my bank account. And now that your upgrade didn't work out, you want your backup plan back. Sarah squeezed my hand gently, a reminder to stay calm. Britney, I'm sorry you're hurting, but Jake and I are married now. We're building a life together. The best thing you can do is focus on building your own life. Britney looked between us, and I could see the moment she realized that her looks and tears weren't going to work this time. This isn't over, she said. But her voice had no conviction left in it. Yes, it is, I said firmly. Goodbye, Britney. It's been 8 months since our wedding, and life with Sarah has been everything I hoped it would be. We've settled into married life seamlessly. My business is thriving, and Sarah got that promotion to supervisor. We're house hunting for something bigger, talking seriously about starting a family. But this story isn't really over until I tell you what happened to Britney, because sometimes karma doesn't just come knocking. It kicks down the door and burns the house down. About 3 months after our wedding, I got a call from my lawyer. Apparently, Britney had tried to sue me for financial support during our cohabitation period. She claimed I'd made verbal promises to support her lifestyle, and that she was entitled to compensation for services rendered during our relationship. Her lawyer was some bottom feeder who probably took the case hoping for a quick settlement. My lawyer laughed when he read the filing. This is the most ridiculous thing I've seen in 20 years of practice. He told me she has no case whatsoever. But the good news is her filing this frivolous lawsuit gives us grounds for a countersuit for harassment. We filed a comprehensive restraining order request along with the countersuit documenting all of Britney's harassment, the social media stalking, the attempts to sabotage my business, showing up at my workplace and wedding. The judge took one look at the evidence and granted a permanent restraining order. Britney was banned from contacting me, Sarah, or my business associates. She was also ordered to pay my legal fees, about $15,000. But the real karma was just getting started. Remember how Britney had tried to sabotage my business with those fake documents and anonymous calls? Well, one of my clients was so angry about the harassment that they did their own investigation. Turns out creating fake regulatory documents and using them to damage someone's business reputation is a federal crime, wire fraud to be specific. My client's legal team handed over everything to the FBI. Within 2 weeks, federal agents were knocking on Britney's parents' door with a search warrant. They seized her computer, phone, and found evidence of not just the fake documents she'd created about my business, but similar schemes she'd tried against 2 other ex-boyfriends in LA. Britney was arrested and charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and criminal harassment. Turns out she'd been running a whole operation using fake identities to create dating profiles, targeting successful men, bleeding them dry, then trying to destroy their reputations when they wouldn't take her back. The local news picked up the story because it involved a multi-state fraud case. Austin woman arrested in cross-country romance scam was the headline. They used her mugshot. No designer clothes or professional makeup this time. Just Orange County jail scrubs and the defeated look of someone who'd finally been caught. But wait, it gets better. While Britney was sitting in county jail waiting for her hearing, her parents kicked her out. Apparently, they'd been dealing with her entitled behavior for months since she'd moved back home. The final straw was when FBI agents showed up at their door. They packed up her stuff and left it on the curb. With no money for bail and no family support, Britney was stuck in jail for 6 weeks before her hearing. During that time, her BMW got repossessed. Apparently, she'd been behind on payments for months, and all her designer goods were seized as evidence in the fraud case. The best part. 3 days before her sentencing hearing, I got a call from the county jail. Britney wanted to make a collect call to me. I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. Jake, her voice was small and broken, nothing like the confident manipulator I'd known. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I'm desperate. They want to sentence me to 3 years in federal prison. Good, I said simply. Please, I'm begging you. If you could just write a letter to the judge, tell them I'm not really a bad person, that I just made mistakes. The audacity was still there, even from a jail cell. She tried to destroy my life, my business, my reputation, and now she wanted me to help her avoid the consequences. Britney, let me explain something to you, I said calmly. You spent 2 years using me for money while planning your exit strategy. You tried to sabotage my business and destroy my reputation. You showed up at my wedding uninvited and now you want me to help you avoid prison. I know I hurt you, But you didn't hurt me. You revealed who you really are. And who you are is a criminal who preys on people's emotions for money. You belong exactly where you are. Jake, please. I have nothing left. No money, no family support, nowhere to go when I get out. I'll be homeless. That sounds like a you problem. I hung up and blocked the jail's number. Britney was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to all her victims, a total of about $180,000. Since she has no assets and no income, she'll probably be paying that off for the rest of her life, assuming she can ever find legitimate work with a federal fraud conviction on her record. The final twist came last month. Sarah and I were having dinner at one of our favorite restaurants when the waiter mentioned that the woman who used to work there as a hostess had been arrested for fraud. Turns out Britney had been working there under a fake name while she was planning her schemes, using the job to meet wealthy customers she could target. She always seemed nice, the waiter said, but some of the other staff thought she was weird. She'd ask a lot of personal questions about customers, jobs, and income, take pictures of expensive watches and cars in the parking lot. Management finally fired her for being on her phone all the time during shifts. Even when she was working a legitimate job, Britney couldn't help but look for her next mark. Sarah just shook her head and squeezed my hand under the table. I almost feel sorry for her, she said. What a miserable way to live. I don't feel sorry for her at all. Britney made her choices and she chose to be a predator. She thought she could manipulate and use people without consequences, that her looks and fake tears would always get her what she wanted. But actions have consequences.